The two biggest names linked to crypto are Elon Musk and Sam Bankman-Fried, and in this video we'll be talking about both of them. Watch this video until the end to find out how Elon Musk backs the call for Sam Bankman-Fried to go to jail. And along with this, why isn't Sam in jail? So without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, Musk wants him in an adult timeout. After the downfall of the one-time crypto icon Sam Bankman-Fried, who's also often known as SBF, people have been questioning whether he'll land in jail. With details gradually coming to the surface, people are curious to know if the sudden collapse of his FTX empire has to do with fraud. We all know that Musk was one of the world's most prominent figures who were very interested in the whole crypto shenanigans. Musk is also notorious for being one of those people who has something to say about everything, so of course he weighed in on this situation as well. Musk tweeted and agreed with a fellow Twitter user who suggested that SBF doesn't need to be mentioned anymore except for his court dates. The Twitter owner replied to the tweet and said, "Let's just give him an adult timeout in the big house and move on." Moving on, SBF wants to learn about what happened at FTX. In an interview with Twitter, the American entrepreneur revealed he would testify before the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services. But he wants to finish learning and reviewing what happened at his crypto empire. He didn't specify how much time the learning and reviewing would take, though. Coming up, people are accusing Sam of using money to plug losses. After the 30-year-old entrepreneur resigned as FTX's CEO on November 11th, he was accused of using people's money for his own good. People have been saying that he used customers' money to plug losses. Although he's denied all the claims, people still think that he funded his risky bets at his trading firm Alameda Research with the money people invested in FTX. After the spectacular collapse of the $32 billion exchange, Bankman-Fried has attempted to portray himself as an inexperienced businessman who was harmed by a failure of oversight. In his first live interview following the demise of FTX, Bankman-Fried declared he never attempted to commit fraud, and he didn't intentionally mix up funds. Right. Being an incompetent CEO is not against the law in the US, but legal experts told CNBC that SBF could be subject to many civil and criminal lawsuits. Next up, what do other entrepreneurs think of the downfall? Musk's opinions on the subject are consistent with statements made recently by several well-known investors and entrepreneurs. It looks like he might be on the right side of things for once. At a cryptocurrency conference last week, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong argued that the collapse of SBF was a very open and shut case for fraud. He said he finds it confusing why he isn't already in custody. According to billionaire Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, Bankman-Fried should be afraid of going to jail for a long time. Cuban said he thought he was intelligent, but he didn't know he was going to take other people's money and use it for his personal use. Well, at least that's what it looks like. Mike Novogratz, a multi-billionaire investor, recently stated that the former CEO of FTX should go to prison for the collapse of the company. He claims Sam was delusional about what happened and his culpability in it. He said that SBF must be prosecuted and some serve time in jail. He also said one person couldn't accomplish something like this, so Bankman isn't alone in all this. Coming up, why Sam Bankman-Fried isn't in jail yet. On December 11, 2008, Bernie Madoff was taken into custody and charged with one of the largest financial frauds in recorded history. It was a daring, protracted Ponzi scheme that cost investors tens of billions of dollars in lost funds. The case has come up once more, and Bankman-Fried's case is being compared with it. When Good Morning America anchor George Stephanopoulos questioned Bankman-Fried about the comparison, he of course rejected it, saying that FTX was a real business, as opposed to Madoff's overt Ponzi scheme. The comparison between Madoff's quick arrest and the fact that SBF appears to be enjoying life in the Bahamas is superficially compelling, but unfortunately, those who are seeking justice in this case might have to be a tad bit patient. In fact, these wild claims seriously run the risk of misleading the many people, including the victims, who are rightfully furious about what appears to have been a massive fraud. You'll just have to wait if you want to see Bankman-Fried charged with serious financial crimes. Not to mention, why was Madoff arrested so quickly? Let's begin with the details surrounding Madoff's arrest. Unfortunately, neither the government nor the media could spot the scheme. Instead, Madoff himself came forward to reveal it. He, having realized he couldn't continue the fraud fraud, confessed the whole thing to his sons. According to the criminal complaint submitted on the day of his arrest, Madoff apparently told his sons that he was finished, that he had absolutely nothing, that it's all just one big lie, and that it was basically a giant Ponzi scheme. 2 days after his sons contacted the FBI, 2 agents visited him at home and questioned whether there's an innocent explanation for what Madoff had told his kids, to which he replied that there wasn't any innocent explanation. See how easy it was in his case? Anyway, this was literally the main reason Madoff was arrested so quickly compared to Sam, because if Bankman had just admitted to his alleged crimes, it would have been so much easier in this case as well. Let's not forget, we have seen no real evidence of fraud. SBF hasn't yet made a genuine admission of criminal behavior, as far as we know. Of course, he isn't in the country right now, so there isn't any need to keep him in the USA. In fact, SBF has been rather chatty in interviews, which is also noteworthy. This means that the Justice Department will have to figure out the situation by investigating. That said, it won't accept SBF's assertions at face value. In fact, given how his remarks on the current hot topic, the loss of more than $1 billion that followed FTX's transfer of customer funds to SBF's hedge fund, Alameda Research, have been utterly meaningless and transparently evasive, so we're positive that they won't hold up. Following up, the government will look for 3 things. To determine whether SBF or those around him committed fraud, the government will primarily look for 3 things: documents, witnesses, and data. Let's break them down for you guys and take each of these in turn. The government's ability to get internal emails from FTX and private correspondence between SBF and his lieutenants are still unknown. It'll largely depend on whether and how much FTX, SBF, and other companies use American technology companies like Google or Microsoft. Who first still has this information, and second, can and will submit it to the American legal process. Besides that, if there's any permanently deleted data, or if they were smart enough to communicate through an encrypted messaging app, which we're guessing could be the case, because if you're pulling off a fraud on that big of a scale, why wouldn't something like this come to your mind, right? Anyway, if they've used an app like Signal, it would be difficult and even more time-consuming, but not entirely impossible to recover that stuff. Finally, there may be a way around this. There are some easy fixes for this, but it's not yet clear if the Justice Department will be able to use them. The government might attempt to compel the documents from one of FTX's US-based entities, or the new attorneys for FTX could voluntarily provide evidence to investigators. But neither of these options is as simple as they appear. FTX or its service providers must have initially retained the underlying materials if the documents actually reside on a server located outside of the United States. There's a probability that the other Bahamian authorities will have access to their own legal means of document acquisition, and that they were ready to give them to American prosecutors. But right now, that is also not at all clear. Documents are undoubtedly a crucial component of any financial fraud case, but in the end, if criminal charges are actually filed, witnesses must testify in front of a jury to describe what happened. This calls for the identification of knowledgeable individuals who can and will cooperate with the prosecution. However, nobody who worked at FTX has yet to give a compelling first-hand account of criminal activity committed by SBF or anyone else. So, in the end, it's still a matter of what and ifs. What if everything Sam has been telling and saying in the interviews is true? But then there's always the possibility of him being exactly like Madoff. Who knows? And things are rarely not shady when there are millions of dollars involved. Anyway, that's a wrap for this video. What do you think about this case? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.